Good evening.
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi.
Sorry?
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi.
Aleichem Shalom. Today is a big day. Today we are going to start the second part of Tanya.
Every day is a big day.
No, that's true. But today is today, so we're talking about today, not yesterday, not the day afterwards. The Rebbe once spoke about how every time a Yom Tov comes along, so if you look in the Chassidus, it talks about how this Yom Tov is the greatest Yom Tov. It's actually, Rebbe spoke about it once in Elul, that if you look in the Chassidus, in the Mamarim, about Elul, talks about Elul is the highest Madrega, higher even than Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And obviously when you come and you look at the Chassidus about Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, so that disappears, that vanishes, and suddenly Rosh Hashanah, and if you look in the Mamarim Rosh Hashanah is the greatest, and Rosh Hashanah is the highest, and you look in Yom Kippur is the highest, Sukkot and Chastarah, Chanukah, it follows every single Yom Tov. No, so what's Pshat? So Pshat is that in a certain aspect there's something special about every Yom Tov, in which that aspect it's greater than every other Yom Tov. So when we're standing on that time, that's what we focus on. So when we're standing in Pesach, we're not going to be focusing on on that aspect in which Shavuos is the greatest Yom Tov, because that would be a big mistake. Because that would, your point is supposed to be living with that aspect of Pesach, which makes it the greatest Yom Tov. So yeah, today is a very special day. What will be tomorrow? We'll have to wait and see till tomorrow. But today is a very special day because today we are starting the second part of Tanya, Shar Yichud V'Emunah. When the Alter Rebbe first printed Tanya, I think we've discussed this in the past, not so long ago, when the Alter Rebbe printed Tanya in the year 1796, so originally Tanya was comprised of 2 parts. As we know now, Tanya is made up of 5 parts. But originally Tanya was comprised of 2 parts. There was Likutei Amarim, the first part, and then there was Likutei Amarim Chelik Sheni, as if you see, you're looking at the page 150, the top line. Likutei Amarim Chelik Sheni. The second part of Likutei Amarim. The first part of Likutei Amarim we already learned. The first 53 chapters of what's today known as Likutei Amarim. Today Shar Yichud V'Emunah is not so much known as Likutei Amarim, but rather as Shar HaYichud V'Emunah. And later on, the other 3 parts of Tanya were added. We spoke about it once. Later on, during the Alter Rebbe's lifetime, he published the 3rd part of Tanya, Yigeres HaTshuva, and added that onto Tanya. Then after the Alter Rebbe passed away, so the Alter Rebbe's sons, they reprinted the Tanya, and they added the last 2 sections of Yigeres HaKodesh and Kuntres Achron. So, the second part of Tanya is very different than the first part of Tanya, in that it focuses on the idea of Achdus Hashem, our emunah in Hashem's unity, and that's why it's known as Shar HaYichud V'Emunah. It's about the Achdus Hashem and our emunah in Hashem's unity, and it talks about it. We have 12 prakim. It's comprised of 12 prakim, where it's not only, it's very easy to say, I believe in Hashem, I believe in Hashem's unity. The Alter Rebbe actually takes it and philosophically and logically analyzes it and takes it apart until the point that when we finish Shar Yichud V'Emunah, the whole idea, the whole concept of Achdus Hashem is something which we can understand, that we can relate to, and is resonant. Now we know that the idea of Achdus Hashem is huge in Yiddishkeit. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which is the mitzvah to believe in Achdus Hashem, is something that we say every morning and every single night. And Avram Avinu, what was Avram Avinu's big chiddush? Avram Avinu, the great Avram Avinu, Echad Haya Avram, what was his big chiddush? Is that he arrived at the understanding and the conclusion, not that there's an Eibishter, but that there's one Eibishter, that there's only one Hashem, Achdus Hashem. And that was the big chiddush that he proclaimed and he taught to the world. And till today, Avram is known as the father of monotheism. Sorry?
Ethical monotheism,
Ethical monotheism. As opposed to?
as opposed to just, one God that, doesn't really rule over anything.
Okay. In the Jewish understanding, there's no difference between monotheism and ethical monotheism. As we'll explain. Or to put it in different words, when we say Achdus Hashem, when we say monotheism, we obviously mean that. So today, most of the world's inhabitants at least claim to be monotheists, whether or not they actually practice it, or whether their beliefs really are monotheism or not, is something which is very questionable. But the point is that the concept of monotheism was brought into the world by Avraham Avinu, and most of the people in the world today ascribe to monotheism, and they openly say that they trace themselves and they root themselves back to Avraham Avinu, who was the first person to bring monotheism into the world. Now, obviously, there were people before Avraham who were aware of the idea of Hashem Echad, but these were people who were aware of it because they were told so by their fathers, by their teachers. Avraham was the first one who actually grew up and was raised in the house of Ovdei Avodah Zarah, in the house of idol worshippers, in the house of pagans, and he, on his own, discovered the idea of Achdus Hashem, and then he went and he spoke about it to everyone. And that was Avraham Avinu's greatness, and then the question becomes, who cares? Why is that so important? The idea of Achdus Hashem, why is that so important? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Why is it something we say twice a day? Why is it something it's the last thing we say before we go to sleep at night? It's the last thing ideally that a Yid says before he returns his neshama to heaven. And if there were two gods, chas v'shalom, why would that be such a big deal? But the truth is that the whole idea of Achdus Hashem is misunderstood, or the depth of it isn't understood. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad doesn't mean that there's one Hashem, or it doesn't mean only that. But Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad means something much deeper than that. And the deepness, the depth in Achdus Hashem is the idea that Ein Oid Mulvadoi V'yadata Hayoim V'shavei Salavecha Ki Hashem Hu Elikim B'Shamayim Imal V'La'aretz Mitachas Ein Oid. Not that there's only one God as opposed to two gods, but that there is nothing but Hashem. That's the emes idea of Achdus Hashem. That's easy to say, but that's very hard to understand. What does that mean? What do you mean that there's only Hashem? How about me? When I say me, I mean that's the question that everyone asks. After all, if there's anything that we sense as a Metzias, that would be ourselves and everything else that Hashem created. Bereshis bara likim es hashamayim v'sa'aretz. Hashem created the heaven and the earth. So there's Hashem and there's heavens and earth. So what does it mean that Hashem Echad? What does it mean that we say that Einoid Mulvadi, this idea of Achdus Hashem? But that's something which the Alter Rebbe is going to discuss at length over the 12 prakim of Sharich V'Emunah until we have a solid understanding of the topic. And there are many other ideas that flow from Achdus Hashem, very important and practical ideas, which we will be discussing over the coming prakim. For example, we will have a completely newfound understanding on the concept of what Hashgacha Pratis means. We will have a new understanding of what does a nes mean? The difference between nes and teva. What is a nes? We will have a different understanding of, or a different appreciation for our task in this world and our ability to do what Hashem wants, Torah and mitzvahs. It really changes the way we view everything, an accurate understanding of Sharich V'Emunah, and true to what Chabad is. The Chabad is about really understanding, Chachma Bin Adas, really understanding everything. So this complicated topic and this deep topic of Achdus Hashem, we're also going to explain well. Now, contrast that with the first part of Likutei Amarim, the first part of Tanya, which its purpose was not philosophical and theological. Now, did it touch upon philosophy and theology at times? For all those who are here, you know the answer is yes. But it was always in the context of Avodas Hashem. The mission statement of the first part of Likutei Amarim was, anyone can tell me, what was the mission statement? What was the mission statement of Likutei Amarim, the first part of Tanya? No, the mission statement of the Kikar, very good. The Mishnah statement was, there's a pasuk that says, Kikarav eilecha davar miyoid, b'ficha v'vavcha la'soisei, that Torah and mitzvahs is accessible. It's possible for us to be able to serve Hashem with our hearts and with our indeed and with our mouth. And the question was, how is that possible, considering that we all struggle so mightily with our nefesh habahamis? And the whole first part of Tanya, the whole Likutei Amarim, is trying to explain to us how it's possible to be able to serve Hashem at every single moment in a way of karav eilecha, to serve Hashem beficha uvavavcha la'asosei. Sometimes it touched upon philosophy and theology in order to be able to explain a certain point. But that was not the mission. The mission wasn't to explain a theological concept, but it was very, very practical. And it's meant to be a madrich, a guide for every Yid in their day-to-day life, and how to navigate the different difficulties and struggles against the Nefesh HaBahamis. Whereas the mission statement of the second part of Tanya is an abstract and theological one. We are basically going to be learning the deepest yesoides of our emunah, the foundations of the emunah explained, so that we not only believe them, but that we also understand them. And if we look very in the beginning over here on page 150, Likutei Amarim Chelik Sheni, this is the second volume of Likutei Amarim, which complements the first. We have the practical and the theological, both elements of Chassidus Chabad. Hanikra b'shem Chinuch Koton. And this sefer is called Chinuch Koton, which means the chinuch, the education of a child. And the reason why it's called that is because the introduction, which is this page which you're looking at over here on page 150, 151, is the introduction. And then in the next page you begin with Perek Aleph. So the introduction talks about the education of a child. So therefore it got the name Chinuch Koton. But again, it is popularly known as Shar Yichud Ve'emunah. Melukat mi pisfarim and pisayfrim kadesh eli nishmasam eden. The ideas in this section of Tanya are collected, compiled from various sfarim and from various scribes, the holiest of the holy, the Shmasam Eden. This is a line which the Alter Rebbe also says in Likutei Amarim. Their neshamas are in Gan Eden. Yeah. So the Sfarim in general is we talk about the Alter Rebbe. We say it's usually said, the tradition is that the Sfarim he compiled were the Shalah and the Maharal, and the Seifrim, the scribes, in other words the people, he's talking about the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrich, Rabbi Avram the Maggid, Rabbi Avram the Malach, the son of the Maggid, and Remendel of Vitebsk, Remendel Haradakar. Miyutzad al Parsha Rishona Shal Kriya Shema, and the entire sefer, this entire section is based on the pasuk, the first parsha of Kriya Shema. Again, contrast that very similar wording in the first part of Tanya, with Alter Rebbe says also melukat b'sfarim b'seifrim kadesh yali nishmas meiden, but there he says miyusad al pasuk ikar v'elacha davar miyoid, and over here it's miyusad in the first parsha of Kriya Shema. Now the first parsha of Kriya Shema has three parts to it. There's the Shema, and then there's the Baruch Shem, which is not part of the Minat Torah, but that's part of the Kriya Shema, and then there's V'ahavta, and that's what we're going to be explaining in this section. Shema, Baruch Shem, specifically as the Alter Rebbe is going to say later, we're going to be based on the idea that the Zohar says that Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is Yichuda Ilah, is the higher level of unity of Hashem, and Baruch Shem Kved Machusei Leilam Vad is Yichuda Tata, is the lower level of unity of Hashem. What does that mean? What is the higher level of unity? What is the lower level of unity? And both of those together flow into Shema Yisrael V'Haftas Hashem Elikecha. Somehow or other, when we have those two levels of unity, then we arrive at V'Haftas Hashem Elikecha. So that is a general introduction to the Sefer, the section, and without further ado, let's get started inside.
Who wrote Shema Yisrael?
Moshe Rabbeinu. It's in the Devarim.
So they were saying it in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu now.
Yeah. So the pasuk says, Shlomo Melech says, "Chanoich lenar al pi darkei gam ki yaskin lo yosur mimena." Educate a child according to his way, and then what's going to happen? Gam ki yaskin, even as the child grows old, lo yosur mimena, he will never stray from it.
Proverbs, right?
Sorry?
Sounds like it's.
I believe so. Yes.
Mishlei.
Yeah,
I know it's Mishlei. I wasn't sure whether it's Mishlei or Kahalas, but it makes sense that it's Mishlei. Very good. Okay. So it's, in general, when someone says a mashal or a proverb, you don't analyze it too closely. It sounds good, right? The Alter Rebbe is going to reveal that there seems to be a flaw in this pasuk. There seems to be a glaring problem. What would that be? Mediksiv al pi darkoi. The fact that the pasuk says that you're supposed to educate your child according to his way, mashma. So the implication is she'ena derech emes lamitay. That it's not the ultimate truth, and that's taka. What does it mean chanech? What does it mean chanech l'na'al pi darkei? What does it mean to educate a child according to his way? What does that mean?
According to his level.
It should say educate a child properly, and then when the child grows up, the child won't move away from it. What does it mean educate a child according to his way?
According to the way that he could understand it and absorb it.
Okay, so by the way, first of all, one way of understanding it is that every child has unique needs. But on a more basic level, chanech l'na'al pi darkei also means that when you teach a child, you don't teach a child the same way you teach an adult. Al pi darkei, according to the way of the child. A child is taught very differently than the way an adult is taught. Just by way of example, there's the famous Rambam, where the Rambam talks about how when you bring a child to a cheder, to a school. So you tell a child, if you learn Torah, I'll give you candies, I'll give you nuts and raisins. He grows a little older, you tell him, I'll give you shoes. Rambam goes through the whole Seder. He grows a little older, you tell him, you learn you'll become a big Rav. Until finally, he learns, you tell him the emes, that you're supposed to learn the Torah when he grows up. You're supposed to learn the Torah. Why? Not because you're going to get raisins, and not because you're going to get shoes, and not even because they're going to call you a Rashka Bahag, or call you a big goyin or something. But this is because this is Hashem's Torah. So chanech l'na'al pi darkei means that when you teach a child, you don't mamish always say things as they are necessarily, because a child is not a keli, but rather you have to filter it according to the child's needs. So what does it mean? Chanech l'na'al pi darkei gam ki yaskin lo yosher mimena. He will not move away from that education he received
when he was younger.
It should say chanech l'na'al pi darkei, and then when he grows up, he'll be set well in his way or something of that sort. That would make sense. If you give a child a proper education, eventually the child will move away, actually, from the way of learning, which is when the child is a child, and now he'll start understanding things as an adult. But so what does it mean? Chanech l'na'al pi darkei gam ki yaskin lo yosher mimena, which it would sound, the mashmos is, the implication is that even when the child, the adult grows up, he will not move away from the chanech l'na'al pi darkei, from that way of that sort of education. Asks the Alter Rebbe, if so, my mal yusa, what is the advantage in the fact that the child is not going to move away from that way of chinuch? What is the advantage that also when the child grows up, that he will not move away from the way of chinuch? Okay, that's the question. We're going to, as is the way in Chassidus and Tanya, we're going to move away from that question, and we're going to get back to it later. Not today, but we'll get back to it some in Mirz Hashem, either next week or the week after. That's when we're ready to resolve that answer to this question. Yes?
I see it in different way. Chanoch l'nar al pi darko. If he went out of the derech, when he get older, maybe he will not go back to the Yiddishkeit. He still be on the same derech that he went when he was young.
So it doesn't mean off the pi darkei doesn't mean off the derech. Where does it doesn't say that? The kipshuta, the translation doesn't indicate what you're saying. It doesn't say that here.
No, I'm just saying it can be translated.
No, it can't.
Why not?
I'm supposed to be the arbitrator over here?
No, because it doesn't say that.
Listen, the Shivim Panim Lo Torah, 70 ways of learning Torah. There's also, that doesn't mean that every single time someone says something is taka emes. Maybe, I don't know, I'd have to think about it. But that's definitely not the way the Alter Rebbe is understanding. It definitely doesn't say, the Alter Rebbe definitely does not say that. That's correct.
I'm sorry.
I don't think, he wasn't saying that's what it says there. He was saying a thought on the pasuk, right? Ahine muda zois. It is known ki sharshe avedas Hashem v'yisaydiseha. The shirish the source of Avodas Hashem and its foundation, or the sources of Avodas Hashem and its foundations, hein dechilu or dechimu, is fear of Hashem and love of Hashem. They are the source. Mudas is known. Mudas is this is known.
Yeah.
So they are the source of our Avodas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. That means that, in other words, that's where they originate, and they're also its foundation. There can sometimes be a source that produces something, and then the source goes away, and the product still remains. But a foundation, if you put a foundation down onto the building, then you build the building, you decide you're taking away the foundation, the building's going to collapse. So Ava V'Yira, not only are they the source of our Torah mitzvahs, in other words, they are what caused us to do Torah mitzvahs, but they also are the foundation. Meaning, it's not that they get us started and then we take it and run from there, but they are also always the underlying foundation of our Torah and mitzvahs. Hayira Sheirush V'Yisod L'Sur Mira. Yiras Hashem is the source and the foundation of Sur Mira, of abstaining from that which is wrong and that which is evil. Via Ava of Asei Toif. Ava, our love for Hashem, is the source and the foundation for doing that which is right. V'kiyum kol mitzvahs asei de'iraisa v'drabanan, and the fulfillment of all the mitzvahs, both the mitzvahs min HaTorah as well as the mitzvahs min Rabbanan, k'moishe yizboyer b'mekoiman, as will be explained in its proper place. What is at the foundation and what is the source of our Avodas Hashem is an emotional attachment. An emotional attachment to Hashem. Why do we serve Hashem? Why do we do that which we do? And why do we abstain in the areas where Hashem tells us to abstain from? Because we have this emotional connection. An emotional connection, a proper emotional connection, is always comprised of these two factors of ahava and yira. Love and reverence, love and awe. Because we love Hashem and we want to be close to Him, so therefore we do things that please Him, that make Him happy, and that connect us to Him. And because we respect and revere and have awe for Hashem, we don't do things that He doesn't want us to do. And this is the way it is in every relationship. What constitutes a healthy relationship? A healthy relationship is one that's based on an emotional attachment, which is comprised of love and fear, except the word fear, as we've discussed before, is deficient, but awe, reverence, respect. And that's why in a proper relationship you're doing things, one person does things for the other, and that is because of the right side of the emotional attachment, the desire to be close. And at the same time, you don't do things that are inappropriate or that will anger the other person in the relationship, and that's because of the Yira element. So at the foundation of Yiddishkeit, at the foundation of Avodas Hashem, again, is this dual faceted, this two-sided emotional attachment, which is comprised again of Ava and Yira. Ava is the Sheirush for Mitzvah Aseh, and Yira is the Sheirush on the Yisoyed for Mitzvah Leisaseh. And Alter Rebbe says, as will be explained, K'moishe Yizbo'er b'mekoiman, in its proper place. And these words, K'moishe Yizbo'er, appear a few times in the Chinuch Koton over here, in this forward. For example, if you look on the next page, on page Ayin Vav, you have 6 lines from the top where it says, K'moishe Yizbo'er b'mekoiman ba'arichos, as will be explained in its proper place. Now, what's interesting is, where does the Alter Rebbe Taka explain these things? And the answer is in Likutei Amarim. So, for example, this idea that Ava is the Sheirush for Mitzvah Aseh and Yira is the Sheirush for Mitzvah Leisaseh, where is it found? It's found in Perek Daled of Tanya. If you flip your pages and you look on page Ches, opposite of page 14, the last word in the line is ki, a little less than halfway down from the top of the page. Ki ha'ava hi sheirush kol ramach mitzvah aseh, ... right? And then he continues and says, v'hayira, a few lines underneath it, v'hayira is the last word in the line, hi sheirush, l'shasah leisaseh, yira is the sheirush, right? So here's something very interesting. On the one hand, as we saw very clearly, this is Likutei Amarim Chelik Sheni. But in a few times in this introduction, when the Alter Rebbe talks about something, he says, as will be explained. Why is he saying as will be explained for something? It was already explained. So from this Chassidim infer that in fact, either Shar Yichud V'Amunah was written before Likutei Amarim, and even if it wasn't written Likutei Amarim before Likutei Amarim, there's no doubt from this wording that at least at a certain point in time, the Alter Rebbe intended for Shar Yichud V'Amunah to be the first section of Tanya, and for Likutei Amarim to be the second part of Tanya. For whatever reason, the Alter Rebbe changed it and made Likutei Amarim into the first part and Shar Yichud V'Amunah into the second part. But although he changed it, he still left this terminology in to somehow confuse us. Now that wasn't his point. He left this terminology in to tell us, by the way, I want you to know that I was strongly considering making Shar Yichud V'Amunah the first section. So that's what the terminology suggests, even though, in fact, when he printed the Shar Yichud V'Amunah and Likutei Amarim, which were both printed by Alter Rebbe during his lifetime, he put Likutei Amarim first and Shar Yichud V'Amunah second. But it's very clear that there was a strong idea, a havim, as they would say in the Alter Rebbe's mind, to reverse it. And we'll talk about that more later on in today's class, the reason why for whether Shar Yichud V'Amunah should be first or Likutei Amarim should be first. We'll talk about that in Mir Hashem a little later. Sorry?
Usually when you say refer like a tie note, usually give the page.
Alter Rebbe doesn't do that. Alter Rebbe doesn't do that. Not in any whenever he says Kamesh Yisbar L'Kaman or Kamesh Yisbar, he doesn't do that.
The other Sfarim they do that.
The other Sfarim, yes, they do that. But I would say it's more of
they give you the address.
I would say it's more of a recent trend.
Oh, all right.
You have to realize for up until this Tanya, which we have as a photostat, pretty much it's a redone photostat of a Tanya that was printed 120 years ago. And before then, there wasn't even a standardized format for it at all. So to give a page number, that's impossible.
Why was it?
Because every print of Tanya was laid out differently.
I mean, it was done by hand.
No, not by hand, but it was different prints. It was laid out differently. Oh. There are certain svarim that are very hard to give a... Like the Shalah. If you take one piece of Shalah, it's quoted 7 places, each place is cited differently because there is no standard Tali Gemara where there's Ayin Aleph Amud Beis, or there's no standard layout. There are many different layouts, and there is no also Perik or Simon Seif system. Okay, we're going off on a side of it. Okay, the bottom line is when he says Kamesh Yisbar, it means Likutei Amarim. Okay, and now in the parentheses. The mitzvah of chinuch, because remember we're coming from the Chanech Lanar Al Pi Darkei, the mitzvah of chinuch also applies to mitzvah aseh, meaning that the obligation of a parent to educate the child, mostly actually chinuch is mostly on the father for reasons we're not going to get into right now, but the mitzvah of chinuch on the father to educate the child is not only what we call la'afrushi me'yisura. It's not only the father has the obligation that if he sees the child wanting to do something which is aser, to do a malacha on Shabbos or to eat something that isn't kosher, or if it's a kohen and the kid's walking into Beis HaKvaris, so then there's a chiyuv. The chiyuv of chinuch is that the father has to stop the child from doing the mitzvahs leisasa, but the mitzvah of chinuch is also, as we know, mitzvah aseh, that the father has to teach a child to sit in the sukkah and to shake a lulav and to hear a shofar and to wear tzitzis and to say brachas, etc. Why is that important? That's important because if a child has to do mitzvahs aseh, what is the shirish v'yisoid for mitzvahs aseh? Avas Hashem. So a father also has to teach a child, has to be mechanech a child to have Avas Hashem, and obviously also Yiras Hashem, because that's part of the chinuch from mitzvahs leisasa. And by the way, this itself is something that we could take time to digest and to process. That many parents will think that what is my mitzvah? To make sure my child says a bracha, and to make sure my child is wearing tzitzis, to make sure my child says Kriya Shema, to make sure my child goes to shul. But the MS is that every mitzvah has to be predicated upon and has to be based upon an emotional attachment, as we mentioned. Mitzvahs aseh on the positive element of the emotional attachment, mitzvahs leisasa on what you'd call the negative element. Not negative doesn't mean bad, but on the yira element of the emotional connection to Hashem. So if we want our children to be doing mitzvahs, and to be abstaining from Averis. It's not enough to tell my child what to do and what not to do. Part of the mitzvah chinuch is also to teach our child to have an appreciation for Hashem, and therefore to have avas Hashem, and therefore to have yiras Hashem. It's a very, very important thing. That the child, it's not enough that a child should be taught to do a mitzvah. The child has to be given reason to have a geschmack in doing the mitzvah, because the child has an emotional connection and attachment to Hashem and to Torah and to mitzvahs and the Yiddishkeit, and that's, to say that that's as crucial, perhaps it's even more crucial. It's the foundation, it's the Yisod V'Sherish. Avas Hashem is the Yisod V'Sherish for all mitzvahs. If you're teaching the child to do mitzvahs, and you're not teaching your child Avas Hashem, then you're giving a child something which is missing a Yisod and missing a Sherish, missing the whole foundation. Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, go ahead, Sasso.
The mitzvah say is on the father.
Yeah.
So what's he saying that it's about the child teaching the child Ahava? I mean, Ahava Hashem. He's saying mitzvah chinuch is gamkein is on the father, not do with the child. He's not talking about it.
No, mitzvah chinuch gamkein b'mitzvah saseh. The mitzvah chinuch applies also to mitzvah saseh. In other words, the father has to teach the children how to do mitzvah saseh, and therefore, automatically, what does that mean? If the Yisod and Sherish of mitzvah saseh is ava, that means the father automatically has to teach a child also avas Hashem. In other words, if it was only lafrushim yisura, then you could say it's enough to teach the child yiras Hashem, because that's the Yisod v'Sherish for mitzvah saseh. But because the father is a mitzvah chiyuv v'chinuch also mitzvah saseh, that includes that. Yes.
If a kid's going out of the derech, I'm sorry, I'm going on this.
You keep on going out of the derech.
If the father is a chinuch allowed to push him, get up, go to shul, get up, go to shul, and then the kids make dafka. Part of the chinuch is to push. That's my question. Because I know a lot of kids, the parents, the father push him, say, I'm not getting up to shul, I'm not getting up. You can push me.
So first of all, that's a good question. Second of all, we're not going to cover the question in today's class because that's a chinuch question, and even though this is called chinuch Koton, but we're using chinuch only to take us to where we want to go. This is not a chinuch class, but that's a great question, and there have been many talks on it, and there are many people who are experts on it, and if someone has that issue on that question, there are people today who are mamish mumchim, experts on this topic in chinuch, and specifically in chinuch with children who are having difficulty.
We see it so much
Yeah.
all over.
But at the same time, although I'm not going to answer your question directly, I do want to say that very often an argument can be made that the reason why children, again, very often, not always, I want to make it very clear, it's not always, but very often the reason why the parents are pushing the children and the children are resisting is because the parents are being mechanech in the mitzvah and they're not giving them the avos Hashem and the yiras Hashem. They're not giving the Yisod v'Sherish.
There's no motivating factor.
Now, again, I do want to point out that there can be parents who give their children a wonderful chinuch in every area on avos Hashem and yiras Hashem, and children have free choice. Yitzchak Avinu had Esau. Yeah, what?
What does say? Which type of machine man?
I didn't go to look it up. It's the halachas chinuch. Yeah.
It's just a halachas.
Yeah. But a lot would be different. You know, how many of the people who go off and they'll tell you very clearly that they never had an emotional attachment. They'll tell you very clearly they were never. It was always something which was difficult and it was a burden, and they were always told what to do and they were told how to do and forced, and it never was something. It was never something that they were taught to really appreciate.
The way of the chinuch maybe wasn't right. How the parents gave it to the kids.
So this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about, and the foundation is again the midas.
They never put the foundation.
The midas, the chayis, the hislahavos, the avas Hashem. That's
I'm sorry, I went out.
No, it's fine.
No,
it's fine.
Going to quench your curiosity.
So just like we have two different types of mitzvahs, there are mitzvahs that are done by adults, and then there are mitzvahs that are done by children, and they're chinuch mitzvahs. It's not in the same madrega. It's a different type of mitzvah. It's a mitzvah of a koton. The same thing is also when it comes to avas Hashem. There are also two levels of avas Hashem. There's the avas Hashem of a gadol, of an adult, a mature person, and then there's the avas Hashem of a koton, which is what we call chinuch koton over here. There's the avas Hashem of a koton. which is not on the same level as the Avos Hashem.
How would it differ?
That's what we're going to find out, but not today. But we're laying the foundation for something over here, which is
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
The luch is that has to have half a year. Maybe the luch is also to trade just to only the mitzvahs. Maar I said the mitzvah is to have a year to do that also. So maybe the luch is only to practice. Shalgalil of those Chikadai, when he grows up, he should be familiar with the Zach.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. You can make an argument. You can say that the Chinuch. Ich verstehe. No, this is the Alter Rebbe. That doesn't say over there. The Alter Rebbe is saying, "Hey, yes, that this is the gather of a mitzvah, and this is the sheish for Yisrael. Otherwise, it's without." B'chol, by the way, I'm sure you know there are chkidas about this, and when it comes to lulav and esrog, for example. No, you know what I'm talking about. Whether can a child be yetz and esrog she'ein shalei? So if it's just practicing, so the child is practicing. But it's not so pashut. A mitzvah has to be a mitzvah k'deboy. If a mitzvah k'deboy is based on Avos Hashem,
but the kid is not mitzvah the mitzvah.
But you know what? I'm sure you can research this and look into it and find different days.
Even if it's not mitzvah the mitzvah, you still
right?
train.
But it has to be trained.
Emotions towards it. So
but if you're training it, without Av, you're training him improperly. You're training him wrong.
Training him is not.
Because you're training him to do a mitzvah without the foundation. When he grows older, he's going to continue doing the mitzvah without the foundation. You're training him wrong.
You train when he's young the emotional part.
So that's what he's saying. That a child has to be trained. So therefore, but obviously, the Av of a child is not the same as the Av of an adult. Says the Alter Rebbe over here. This is a spoiler alert, which we're not going to get to today. You have to teach a child to have Avos Hashem on the level of Katnus, on a lower level. Why? Because Gam Ki Yaskin, even when the child goes older, there will be times, as the Alter Rebbe will explain later, when the child will need specifically that lower level of Avos Hashem. Even though the child is going to graduate to a higher level of Avos Hashem, but you have to be mechanech a child with Avos Hashem, which is on a lower level of Avos Hashem, and then Gam Ki Yaskin, when the child grows up, there will be times, not always, but there will be times, as will be explained by the Alter Rebbe, when the Yosher Mimena, he will need that foundation, he'll need to fall back on that Avos Hashem which he was taught when he was a child.
It's part of his growth when Ki Yaskin.
Okay, it actually is. You don't understand exactly what you're saying, but you're actually correct.
That's the best line I heard.
Okay. So.
Right.
The Shimon Gimel is actually talking about loisas. It's interesting.
Yeah, and he doesn't mention mitzvah say at all.
It's all talking about not letting him eat in the treifus or whatever. I'm interested.
There has to be something there. Okay. So let's recap where we are right now. We said that there's Chanech L'Na'al Pi Darkei. So we asked a question, which we already semi-answered, without Havana. We don't really understand the answer yet, but I gave you at least, I told you where we're heading to, and that is that there are two levels of Avos Hashem, because adults do mitzvahs, children do mitzvahs, mitzvah chinuch. So there's the level of Avos Hashem, which is on the adult level. There's a level of Avos Hashem, which is on the chinuch level, and Gam Ki Yaskin L'Yosher Mimena. Now, what are these two levels of Avos Hashem? And I want to give a little hakdama that these two levels of Avos Hashem aren't necessarily the level of Avos Hashem that you have till you're 13 and afterwards, but there is a lower level of Ava and a higher level of Ava, a chinuch level of Ava, which is meant to prepare us for a higher level of Ava, and those are the two levels of Ava we're going to talk about now. And first, the Alter Rebbe is going to start by talking about the higher level of Ava. V'hinei be'Ava ksiv, regarding Ava says, b'seif parshas Ekev, the pasuk says, "Asher anochi metzave eschem la'asoisa." Moshe tells the Yidden, "I'm commanding you la'asoisa to do this la'avas Hashem v'goymer to love Hashem." V'tzarach l'haven, we have to understand, eich shayich lashon asiyah gabi ava shebalev. How is it possible to say regarding ava, which is in the heart, the word asiyah la'asoisa, to do it? However, the idea is the Avos Hashem, the two levels of Avos Hashem, which again is going to parallel what I said earlier: the Ava of a Koton and the Ava of a Gadol, the Ava of someone who is spiritually small and the Ava of someone who is spiritually great.
Why do you have the Ava after Lasoy? So the Ava should have been before Lasoy. In order before you should have the love precedes the Asiyah.
But
I'm talking about the say that.
But the Lasois is referring to Avos. I'm commanding you to do this, and what am I commanding you to do? La'avas Hashem. Says the Alter Rebbe that the word doesn't make sense.
No, why are you doing it? Because
no,
the Hava should precede the Asiyah.
No,
not
but
the Hava comes
after. You're not listening to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I said, Asher Neichi Mitzvah Eschem Lasois. I'm commanding you to do, and what is it that you should do? La'avas Hashem. You should love Hashem.
I thought La'aseh means the mitzvahs.
No, and that's why the Alter Rebbe asks. Then how does the word
wrong,
right? How does the word Lasoisa apply to love? The idea is the Ashnei Mine Avas Hashem, the two levels of Avas Hashem, and this is stuff which we'll be familiar with because for those of you who know the Kotei Amarim, this is things that we covered over there. Ha'achasi, one level of Avas Hashem, which is the higher level of Avas Hashem, the mature level of Avas Hashem. He klois hanefesh betiva el boira, is the neshama which naturally is, as you know, whenever we say the word klois hanefesh, we have a problem translating it. For some reason in English there is no translation for it. Surprise, surprise. You know, you'd think that people will be talking about it all the time, so there would be words for it. But apparently there is no word for it. It doesn't happen too often. But klois hanefesh means that the neshama is literally segetois. It's yearning for, expiring towards its creator. And this is something which is natural for the neshama. The neshama naturally has this tremendous love for Hashem. Neir Hashem nishmas adam. The neshama is like a candle, like a flame that's reaching upwards. It's a natural ava the neshama has for Hashem. If it's natural, then why don't we all experience this incredible love for Hashem? Because there are some preconditions. The preconditions are not how we create this love, because this love we don't create at all. It's natural. But these are conditions for us, for the love to be revealed and expressed. And what that is, kasher tizgaber nefesh asichlas ala chomer, when the nefesh asichlas, which over here, this is a reference to the neshama, the nefesh alikis, overcomes the material and the physical, v'tashpilehu v'tachmi'ehu tachteha, and totally denigrates it and subjugates it beneath it. Azai then tislahit, then the neshama itself can be ablaze with a flame that goes up by itself. There's a love we all experience as the neshama. The problem is that this love is so covered up. It's so covered up with chumriyas and gashmiyas. So it's not that it squelches the flame. It doesn't allow it to be experienced. Yeah, we have to remove all the garbage. You have to remove the Versunkenschaft. I don't even know if that's a word in Yiddish, but no, who here knows Yiddish? What? They're being sunk into, sunk into the,
like a German word.
Sunk into the Gashmias, into the Chumrias. And we have to allow then the neshama to reveal itself, and then the neshama automatically springs to life with this tremendous love for Hashem. V'togil v'tishmach b'Hashem oisa, then the neshama takes great joy in Hashem, its creator. V'tis'adig al Hashem tainu nifla. It's not only a love, this is an incredible pleasure. This is like what the neshama is experiencing in Gan Eden. V'hazoichim l'maylas ava rabazu. Who merits this incredible ava? Heim hanikroim tzadikim. Tzadikim. Kediksiv, as the pasuk says, Simchu tzadikim b'Hashem. Who are the ones who take joy in Hashem? Because their neshama is alive with a fiery love and pleasure in Hashem. That's tzadikim. Not everyone is able to reach this level. For this, you really need to refine the chumriyas. V'gam toira masim toivim harba. You need a lot of toira, a lot of masim toivim. To be zoichet to the revelation of your neshama. Shalamaylam and medregas ruach v'nefesh, which is higher. We know that there's nefesh, ruach, neshama. In order to experience this level of ava, we have to be operating on the level of neshama, which is the highest level of the neshama. So level of ava number one is a level of ava which is experienced by holy people who have a lot of Torah, a lot of Maisim Tovim, people who have done a lot of work and they've really managed to overcome the chumriyas of
the Hava B'Tanik, what we had.
Sorry?
That's the Hava B'Tanik, what we had in the Chinuch, no? Hava Rabba, Hava
L'chayra, it's all in the same.
Category.
Yeah. What's the second level of Ava? Vashein is he Ava shekol adam yochel lagia. Second is the Ava which every person can reach. Kishi is boyin and hativ. When a person meditates deeply, and we're going to stop over here.
That's it.
We're going to stop over here. The second, suffice it to say, the second level of Ava is an Ava which is manufactured. So Ava which is manufactured through his boinus. And Alter Rebbe is going to explain that's what Moshe said, La'asoisa, that this is an Ava that has to be made. The first level of Ava is an Ava which is natural within the Neshama. And that Ava is not created, it's revealed. It's revealed through Avodah, but the Avodah doesn't create the Ava. The Avodah reveals the Ava. And then there's the second level of Ava, which is a lower level of Ava. And this Ava has to be created. And how is it created? It has to be awakened, and it has to be created. I want to skip now, and we're going to come back next week, but I want to skip now to the next page, the last 3 lines.
Which one? Which column?
Right here, Ayin Vav, the second column, the last 3 lines over here. After the Alter Rebbe has, which we'll learn in Mitzvah Shem next week, after there's going to be a whole Arichas, where the Alter Rebbe explains how it is exactly the different types of his Baininus that we're going to come to love Hashem. He says, you want to start in the very beginning. How do you awaken Ava Vayira for Hashem? And what is the foundation? It's having a true Amunah in Hashem's unity. So this whole Hakdama, which we're learning over here, this whole Chinuch Koton, which again, we're not finished learning at all, we're going to get back to it. The point is, we're talking here about Avas Hashem, and we have to create a Avas Hashem. How do we create a Avas Hashem? So the Rebbe says, in order to have a real Avas Hashem, in order to be able to meditate and create Avas Hashem, the foundation, sorry?
It's the second Hava still.
The second.
Yeah. Which is the Ava, which is shaykh to all of us. The foundation of that is to have a true understanding and a Amunah and an understanding in Achdus Hashem. Really understanding what this Hashem that we serve is all about. What does it mean in it Movadei? That is absolutely foundational in order to reach Avas Hashem. So in a way, and therefore, by the way, we understand Shema and Baruch Shem, which are both Achdus Hashem. What do they lead to? What's the next words? V'hafta. When you understand the Achdus Hashem, when you understand Hashem Echad, then you get to V'hafta Hashem Alikecha. So we have is pretty incredible. The Alter Rebbe, before he starts Sharicha V'Amunah, he says, I'm going to give you here this whole theological explanation of why it is, of what does it mean Hashem Echad. And the Alter Rebbe feels a need to excuse himself beforehand. Why? Why am I burdening you with this whole theological thesis? So I want you to know, because you want to have Avas Hashem, and the bottom line is you need Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, because Avas Hashem is the shirish for the 248 mitzvahs Haseh, and Yiras Hashem is the shirish for the 365 mitzvahs. So you want to have that, you need to have first the Emunah and Achdus Hashem. So the Achdus Hashem leads to Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, which leads to Torah and mitzvahs.
So why did he start with the Chinuch Koton? Just start any mensch, jeder mensch, when he wants to get to the second half, which should be with the mensch.
Let's wait. Otherwise, that will, as we explain next week, the week after.
So, what touches the neshama more?
Sorry?
What touches the neshama more? Would it be Torah or tefillah? Prayer or studying Torah? In other words, to make this connection, which is high spiritual level, would it be a prayer, meditation, or would it be studying the Torah? Or both of them simultaneously?
It's both of them. It's not simultaneously, but both of them. They both serve the purpose. The Torah teaches you the proper understanding and awareness and perspectives. The Tefillah allows it to sink in. In this week's parsha, we have a pasuk, and as it turns out almost every week that what we're talking about, mamish connects to the parsha, which mamish connects to this idea. We have a very famous pasuk in this week's parsha. What would you say is the most famous pasuk in this week's parsha? Anyone? What? Okay.
Everything that comes out of the mouth of Hashem. No?
That's not in this week's parsha.
Oh, that was
I'm referring to Ki Adam Eitz Asada. Tamti is also very good, but Ki Adam Eitz Asada. Sorry? Yeah. So the Gemara in Tainus The Gemara says, Adam Eitz Asada. The Gemara says, Adam Eitz Asada, is a person taka a tree? Or rather, the Gemara says, yeah, a person's taka a tree. Why? Because in this week's parasha it says two different things regarding a tree. One pasuk says, V'oisoi loisichreis, don't cut down the tree. Another pasuk right afterwards says, V'charata, that you should cut it down the tree. So in the pasuk, what's it talking about? A tree that doesn't have fruit, you can cut down. A tree that gives fruit, you can't cut down. And the Gemara says that's exactly the way it is. The parallel by Talmud Chacham, that if you see a Talmud Chacham Talmud Chacham hagun, Talmud Chacham that's proper, notice Talmud Chacham that gives off fruit being Torah mitzvahs, then lo yichreis, right? That's the person you have to learn Torah from. If you see a Talmud Chacham which the Eini hagun, then v'charata, as Rashi says, stay away from that guy. Okay, nice piece of Gemara, right? Once again, we have the process. Let's examine this Gemara, which the Rebbe does in the Sikha. The Rebbe says, I don't know, what's the question? The Gemara doesn't know that there are many comparisons between a human being and a tree. How could the Gemara not know that? We have it even in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. What does it say in Pirkei Avos? In which way we compare it to a tree? No?
The one who goes, he learns without mitzvahs, who does mitzvahs without learning.
That Misha Chamasei Meruba V'Maisav, right? That someone is like a tree that has a lot of branches and a few roots, and a wind will come, blow them over. So the Gemara knows that there are comparisons to human beings and trees. So what's the question? And if you're going to tell me no, the Gemara is not asking what's a comparison. The Gemara wants to know, are you really telling me a person's a tree? In that case, the answer doesn't make sense, because the Gemara is giving another comparison. Why is that comparison any better than the comparison that we have in Pirkei Avos? Or there's so many other comparisons that we always hear on Tuba and Tuba Shvat. We all know how many comparisons there are between the human being and the tree. So why is the Gemara satisfied only with this particular answer? In other words, what was the question? We know there are comparisons, and what is the answer? How does the answer satisfy in an area where no other satisfy? I think we've mentioned this many times, that it's the Rebbe, I don't know if it's unique to the Rebbe, but it's something which is, the Rebbe will take an Agadata, which everyone reads, and everyone looks at it and says, yeah, that sounds beautiful, that's nice. And we don't bother, it's not like a Gemara, from the Sugis Chamuris and Shas that we analyze from every single side. So everyone reads it sounds nice, it's Agadata, what's Agadata? It's Moishech Libi Shaladam, leave it alone. And the Rebbe doesn't leave it alone. The Rebbe's like, we have to put this under scrutiny and let's see, does it hold up? And a lot of times it doesn't, until we have a deeper understanding. What is the deeper understanding over here? So the Rebbe says that in Chassidus, it's brought down in different places, that we know that the world is comprised of Doimim, Tzemeach, Chayim, Medaber. Just like the world is comprised of Doimim, Tzemeach, Chayim, Medaber, the human being is also comprised of Doimim, Tzemeach, Chayim, Medaber. This is in general. We know that everything is a microcosm of everything, and the general can be found also in the particular. It's like in the Sphere Sa'imer, you have Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, and then in Chesed you have Chesed, Gvura, Teferes also. And especially because, as we know, Shlomo Melech says, V'gam ha'olam nasan b'libay. I don't know whether it's Mishneh or Kehelos either, but that means that the whole world exists in the human being. The human being is a reflection of all of creation. What is the Doimim Tzemeach Chayim Medaber within a human being? So for our purposes, the most important thing to know is that Tzemeach is Midos, and the Medaber is Seichel. Sorry, the Chai is Seichel. If there are places where it talks about at length, I don't want to go into length. Oisya speaking is Doimim, and Midos is Tzemeach, Seichel is Chai, and Medaber is the mucker of the Koyach HaDibur. Again, all for the purpose of our conversation, let's focus on the fact that Tzemeach is Midos. So within a person, the emotions of the person are the Tzemeach. Why is the emotions of the person Tzemeach? Because on the one hand, there's life in it, in Midos, just like trees that live. But at the same time, it's rooted into the ground. Unlike an animal, which is a level above it, which can wander around and go anywhere, a tree, if it moves away from its place, it dies. And that's also, midos are very strongly rooted in one place. either chesed or gevura. Chesed can't see the value in gevura. The mind, which is a level higher, chai seichel, can see multiple perspectives. It can wander around. It can be abstract. Midos can't be abstract. They're very much rooted in the self, and they can't move from where they are. Once we understand that within the person, the midos are the tzemeach, now we understand that the Gemara asks, are you telling me that a person is defined by the midos? A person is much greater than midos. A person is seichel. Why are you telling me that Adam is eitz hasada? Interesting also is that we know the human being has several names. There's Adam, there's Ish, there's Gever, and there's Enosh. Of those four names, we'll only discuss two of them right now. Adam represents Seichel, and Ish represents Midos.
How's that?
What do you mean, how's that?
Adam is from Adam.
Adam is Adam el-Elyon. Leave it alone. We're not. This is not. This is. You have to trust some of the things that I'm saying here. Yeah. And if you want, there's sources for everything. I can give you the sources for everything. Adam eitz hasada. You tell me that the Adam is midas. Adam is seichel. If you tell me that Ish is eitz hasada, okay, I'll get it. But Adam is the name of Atam Kriyim Adam. That's the crowning glory of human beings when he's called Adam. You tell me Adam eitz hasada. Adam is all about midas. And what does the Gemara answer? The Gemara says, yeah. And you want to know what my proof is? I'll give you a proof from a tree. Take a look here, you have a tree. If the tree has fruit, it's valuable. You can't cut it down. If the tree doesn't have fruit, then cut it down. What do you mean? What's greater, the tree or the fruit? The tree. The tree is the source of the fruit. How can you say that the tree's value is dependent on the fruit if the tree is the makar, the tree is the foundation? Sure. Why would the tree's value be but as he is, that's the Metzias. And the same thing is also by a Talmud Chacham taka that way. If you have a Talmud Chacham, but if he doesn't have Peiros, he doesn't have Torah mitzvahs, cut him down. Only, where's his value? So here we see an interesting dichotomy over here in the tree. That on the one hand there's the source, but the source comes first, and it is the makar, it is the shayrish, but at the same time, the value of the source is only if it produces fruit. And the same thing is in the human being. Yes, what is the greatness of the human being? What distinguishes the human being from all other species is seichel. But if the seichel doesn't come into midos, if the seichel doesn't bring to avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, and avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, which automatically spawn mitzvahs, keeping the mitzvahs and staying away from averos, then what is the seichel worth? Even though that the seichel is higher and it's the source, but ultimately the value of the seichel depends on the fact that it's producing the midas and it's producing taka, the midas which produce the mitzvahs asay and mitzvahs leisasay. So adam eitz hasada taka. The person, you want to know, is a person a person? Take a look at the tree within the person, at the midas, the tzemeach within the person. If the midas are good, then we know taka it's a adam. Otherwise, vicharata. Cut it down. We mentioned earlier that the Alter Rebbe originally had a mind to do Shariach V'Emunah first, and then Likutei Amarim, but then he reversed it. Think about that for a second. In the context of what we're just talking about over here. Shariach V'Emunah is the seichel, it's the theology, it's the philosophy, which, as the Alter Rebbe says over here, that philosophy and theology is what's going to give birth to the midas, to the avos Hashem and yiras Hashem. When you have a emisa, understanding, and emunah in Achdus Hashem, that's mo'eder, the Ava V'Yiras Hashem. So therefore, Shaykh V'Amunah should go before Likutei Amarim, because this is the Shayrish, this is the Yisoid, this is the mind which leads to the heart. And that's why Taka originally was first. And then the Alter Rebbe consciously flipped it around and says, yes, even though that the mind comes first, but what is the goal, what is the primary, isn't the Likutei Amarim, in the avos Hashem and the yiras Hashem, in the Paris, and that living a daily life, and in your struggles with Nefesh Bahamas being victorious over there. But still, he didn't change the terminology. He still kept the Kameshi Yizbar, so that when we read it, we should know that actually it does come first. But even though it does come first, even though Sheikh V'Munah does come before Likutei Amarim, Likutei Amarim is actually first because of its priority.
But it has more value, like the Paris.
Because the whole value of Sheikh V'Munah is only in the Paris. To be continued next week in Mir Hashem.
Maybe I don't understand the terminology, but how can the scientific divorce be separated from ethos?
How can what?
Talking just about intellect can be divorced from ethos?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so seichel is not necessarily...
No. Midas can't be divorced from action, but Seichel can be divorced from Midas.
So seichel means just intellect only?
Intellect, yeah, you can have people who are philosophers and they understand, but it doesn't impact them. But if you're emotionally attached, that's automatically going to lead to
Usually the seichel is divorced from Midas.
Very often, unfortunately. But Midas is never divorced from action. Right.
That's the challenge.
Right.
Seichel gets it to Midas.
Right.